You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. And today, a story with someone who you probably are going to identify with this story. And that is growing up in Mississippi, being introduced to the outdoors, hunting, fishing, and food. And this guy's journey with food has taken him all over the country, all over the world, and all over your television. He is Nick Wallace on today's show.
This episode of the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast is brought to you by the Foundation for Mississippi Wildlife, Fisheries, Parks, and Marine.
You're listening to the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Wyatt. With us today, and this is really what it's all about, isn't it? Somebody who knows food. Inside, outside, backwards and forwards, and all points in between. He is Nick Wallace, the best chef in Jackson for 4 years running, and in 2020, the best chef in Mississippi. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is one of the best moments because I love outdoors.
Well, I was reading that about you, and I read and kind of look at your background. You're from here in Mississippi, born and raised here, and have gone to great heights already in the culinary world. But for you, things kind of really started on a farm and doing a little hunting and fishing as a kid, right? Take me back to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Going fishing is not just going out there throwing a rod. It's it has to be a kind of a journey because, the way my grandmother did it, she would bring out or start a fire or, she would bring something out, but we ate by the water. So it was one of those things that she wanted you to get comfortable, have fun. Like we used to play in the water, as well as we fished, but we was attached to the land. But brim is like one of my favorite fish,
right?
Because all you do is it's got to be very crispy. So as soon as it comes out of that grease, my grandmother always hit it with just a little bit of salt, but you just take a fresh piece of sliced bread and you just pinch the side of it. You don't take all the scales out. You don't do that. You pinch the side. So you take the whole fillet off and you take some homemade hot sauce because she had that always straight out of the mason jar. And you eat that just like you eating a hot dog. And I'm telling you, if you never experienced that next to a pond in Mississippi, it'll hook you.
On the bank.
On the bank. It has to be. It's one of the best feelings ever.
And it's we've got so much ground to cover with you. And I hear you talk. I see your face. And I think about all these experiences, TV shows on a food network and all this stuff, restaurant owner. And then it hit me. So you mean to tell me that a lot of what I see and a lot of your work and a lot of the way you prepare food now goes all the way back to learning that from your grandmother, your grandfather, like it's still in your work now?
It will never leave. One of the things that I think like TV world always find it kind of impressing about me, I always kind of stick to my roots, So I'm always going to be a Mississippi boy, regardless of wherever I am. And I'm always going to be my Nana's baby too. And she is going to forever be the best chef that I'll ever know. So a lot of her things that she spent around and taught me, nobody could ever take that place. So it works. My grandmother has lived a long life on the land here in Mississippi, and all you got to do is get you a little taste of it. I don't care if it was sweet potatoes and eggs, it's so many different experiences that I remember about my grandmother, but she used to always cook people favorites too. So when it was squirrel season, squirrels.
Okay.
My dad loved squirrel brains and eggs. She wasn't never scared for that approach, but nobody couldn't fix my dad that dish better than my grandmother. And that's what I'm left with.
Well, and kind of my next thought or question for you was to describe for me when your culinary career began to take off. And you just kind of described the roots of it. When did it start to take off and develop for you? That's what you wanted to do.
So once I kind of learned my footing, I was good at home cooking for my sister. And this is before I even thought about going out there and trying the restaurant scene. So getting out there in the restaurant scene, I've worked with, the Spanish culture. I got to see like some of the things that they're really, really great at, and I consume that. And I've worked with, you know, a lot of the great chefs that's still doing it out here. So I got a lot of that, but I didn't find myself yet. And I'm sure my grandmother was the same way. I'm sure she had to find herself at some moment, and I'm sure her mom and everybody else taught her. So I needed that moment to kind of find myself. So I became like a corporate chef for Marriott at a very young age because I've always been good at math. So after that point right there, it was time for me to kind of find myself. So you're talking late 20s, you know, late 20s, early 30s is when I started putting the pen down and writing pretty much like my grandmother was thinking. And I stuck to it. And that's the way I cook. I just did a dinner a couple days ago, and it was this like 5 courses with 4 other chefs, and everybody's cooking. I love the sardine mix. I love that somebody else was cooking trout, and I didn't want to overload nobody else with fish. So I just did something that kind of reminded me of one of my grandmother's dish, but I just put it together in a sophisticated kind of modern way. So I fermented these sweet potatoes because I'm a sweet potato fan, but I fermented these sweet potatoes for like 13 days. So they smelled just like sweet potato pie as they were aging. So I cut just like a disc of them, cooked them in butter, like basting them almost like doing a steak. That went down on the plate. Then I took like pig necks, like the bones off the pig, and I cooked that down, busted down the marrow, finished it with a lot of curry, a lot of spices, and I pretty much made like a demi out of it because I cooked it for so long. That went down on the plate. So it was about halfway up from the sweet potatoes. I picked some of the neck bone meat, crisped it up. It went on top of the sweet potato. Made some homemade goat cheese, which that was something that I got from my grandmother too. That went on a plate. And her famous like pepper jelly. So I took some very hot Serrano chilies and made some pepper jelly. That went on a plate. Took some beet leaves and made like a pesto. And when I tell you, the reaction I got was, this is better than any Sunday dinner or any kind of comfort food. But that was my intentions, is to do it like that. So I love that I can go out and kind of formulate some of these dishes that kind of, you know, this is, my grandmother had a whole spread on the table, but I put it all in one plate.
It's fascinating to hear you talk because we're like 5 minutes in. Brim, sweet potatoes, things like that are, you know, frankly, like if you're born and raised in Mississippi, spending time here, we kind of take it for granted. Like it's just part of everyday, you know, food items. Maybe in another part of the, and maybe some of the people that you encounter in your career as you branch out, maybe they're not as familiar with it, but it doesn't get any more Mississippi than catching fish, eating it, brim, sweet potatoes.
Yes. No, it don't. I'm just happy to just be so happy in Mississippi too. And, you know, have all these friends, especially from like TV shows that come here. Because I've had a few of the chefs from my Top Chef season that come down here for like the Jackson Food and Wine Festival that we kicked off in early March. So I took a lot of them around town and got them to really experience Mississippi because they thought Mississippi was all dirt roads and we was all riding horses, you know? So this is the funniest thing. But I got a chance to let them see, you know, some of the rural aspect of it. And that was a highlight for me. And one of them favorite is buffalo fish.
Okay, really? The buffalo carp?
Yes.
Okay.
They love it.
Really?
Absolutely. I mean, just completely love it. They never tasted the fish that was packed with so much flavor. And that's how I feel too. But nobody can't eat it like my grandmother, but we just kept, I was telling them there's a lot of bones that kind of run through it. So I just told them a little trick that my grandmother taught me, and I'm sure you probably know this, but just keep eating, have fun, you know, just be careful, but eat. But if you choke on the bone, don't worry about it. Just eat this sliced bread, baby. It'll fix your problems and swallow it and everything is fine.
Just eat bread with it. All right. And so Nick, things start to take off for you in your 20s, maybe early 30s. And now we look up, and as of right now, we've mentioned the television, we can get into that, but you're a restaurant owner as well. When did that start to happen for you?
So that started about, I own my own business, Nick Wallace Culinary, with a commissary kitchen like 8 years ago.
Okay.
And I'm kind of like really like my grandfather, so I really don't like to do things until it feels right to me. So we have had the museum restaurant for 3 years now. It'll actually be 3 years this July. It's been a fun journey because of everybody coming into Mississippi. They normally stop at the museum. So we get to kind of set the bar as high as we can for all of our wonderful Mississippi folks. And I just want them to have a good experience. So when they go out to see everybody else, at least they can say, okay, at least it started off right. Yeah. They can experience a lot of the Mississippi gumbo. You know, a lot of things I do, I try to write the Mississippi story in it. It makes some of the Louisiana people kind of upset, but it's okay. I'm protected by Mississippi, so that's what I say. So yeah, we have the commissary kitchen, which we do a little bit of farming there. We do a lot of training and teaching. We got a chef's table we do with some upscale dinners we do there. We do a lot of catering, and we're about to open up something about that sweet woman I was telling you about is my grandmother. So we're about to open up Hen and Egg. And the hen is a reflection of my grandmother and the egg is me. So it's slow food served fast. And we're going to open it in Ocean Springs, right next to the Walter Anderson's Museum. And we're also going to open it at the Sun and Sand here in Jackson. So we can get, I can see everybody. Everybody can see and taste a lot of the things that came from my sweet woman, Miss Linnell and Nana. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's fascinating. What a great name too. Mm-hmm. Hen and Egg, and a meaning behind that.
Yes.
So in terms of your connection to wildlife in Mississippi, you grew up fishing. We talked about that. Grew up hunting. Does that kind of stuff, does it find its way like into your kitchen and into your food that you serve for others from time to time?
Yes, always. Because I meet so many people that somehow, some way we get on the topic of hunting.
Okay.
I don't care if we just met each other for 5 minutes, but it's something about like an outdoorsman. It's like a swag, Yeah. You can almost tell that who you can have a conversation with about talking about going pheasant hunting or quail. You can have those conversations. So I've had so many of them throughout my life that I get invited to go so many places. I used to live in Anchorage, Alaska, so I got a chance to see it from that side of things too, and go out there and try to catch fish off there by the Copper River and all that was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
I bet.
But here in Mississippi, one of my loves is deer. I grew up deer hunting. I think I know everything about a deer, and I love that the deer and myself have like the same taste buds. That's what my grandfather used to say, because like one of my favorite berries are the dewberries. And I've seen deer nibbling on the dewberries so many times. And he don't want me to talk while I'm sitting up there in the blind, but I really kind of want to tell them, hey, move back. You got to save them for me, because I'll grab them and throw them in a bag or something, and I'll go back home. And because my grandmother used to always make preserves, and it's like some of the best things with biscuits.
No doubt.
So I like the way, going out there in the woods and all, of how the outdoors just really affect, our lifestyle. It saves us trips to the grocery store. It keeps us connected with nature. It's so many different worlds.
I don't even know what the culinary name for this would be, but dewberries. I've had that experience as a kid of, wild dewberries. You encounter them, maybe you're out hunting, whatever. Pick them, you take them home. Maybe they're in the fridge overnight, but the next morning, Dad would make biscuits, and we just put them in a pot, cook them down until they became, more of a liquid, and maybe sugar, but they didn't really need that. And then instead of jelly or something else on the biscuit, it was just cooked down. I don't even know what the name of that is. You cook them down, but cook down dewberries and eat them that way. And I think probably there's a lot of people listening that can familiarize with that, have done that.
Oh yeah. And it's great just by itself, but I got so addicted to having, my grandmother always shaving like pork belly. She always smoked things in her smokehouse. So, but shaved pork belly, with dewberries, with a homemade biscuit coming out of a cast iron skillet. I mean, if you don't know, like if you really want a great smile on your face, you know, come down here and we'll show you in Mississippi how we do it.
That's great. All right. And somewhere along the way, television. I mentioned Food Network and Top Chef and some of these other things. You've been all over the country involved with television shows and competitions. When did that start to happen for you?
So back in 2012, I got a chance to get my application accepted for Cut Their Kitchen. So I went to Hollywood. First time in my life to be in Hollywood. And
what was that like?
It was eye-opening. It was different. You know, everything was fast there. Everybody looks different. You know, everybody was really on their A game dressing-wise. Like, I don't care where they was going. They could just be going to get a cup of coffee and they got a 4-piece suit on. You know, everybody, I guess they had something to prove and maybe go and get jobs and acting and all. So that was the part that was so eye-opening, especially at the hotel I was staying, because that's how it felt. It felt just like a movie. You just watching a movie. But it was great. But that's when I learned that I really need to redirect myself about how I'm going to be viewed from being from Mississippi. Because I almost let one of the guys kind of rattle my skin, because he was Cut Their Kitchen is almost like a game show in a way.
Okay.
And they get up under your skin because they can say things, they can outbid you and like bid that your stove, you have to cook something else because we took your stove away.
Okay.
So I think you have like $10,000 per chef, and you can use that and whatever money you have left over. And if you win, that's what you take.
Okay. Okay.
So they was spending some money on me. They was taking utensils away. They was taking I had no burners, no ovens. Like, they was taking as much as they could because they knew I came from Mississippi and I'm a powerhouse. I mean, I could feel it. But they started giving it back to me and like saying that Nick is, you know, save room in front of the fryer because Nick is going to stay in front of the fryer, frying catfish and make comeback dressing, you know, that kind of stuff. They knew enough to say those things. So apparently they was probably impressed with Mississippi to speak on those kind of things. So it got up under my skin. This was my first show. It was a lot more maturing I needed to do. I did good on that show, but I only placed second. I was bummed. I got on the airplane. I came back and the show came out, and going to the grocery store and seeing these kids at schools, because I do a lot of nonprofit work, it was never going to be the same again. I got to see their reaction and me thinking I'm a failure because I should have won, you know, and that's all I'm telling myself. And
you're competitive, aren't you?
Very.
I can tell. I can tell.
Yeah, and you don't want nobody saying nasty things to you to win anyway.
Sure, right.
So yeah, very hard on myself, but Mississippi reacted. So I wanted to give something back to Mississippi, so I signed up for, I inquired about Chopped.
Okay.
And Alton Brown is the judge, the host for Cut Their Kitchen. So I inquired about Chop because I said that, you know what, I could probably go and do Chop very well. So I get a call from them like months later and said that we're bringing Alton Brown on Chop for a special edition that's called like preservation.
Okay. So
preservation is something how my grandmother taught me. I know about canning and all that stuff there, dehydration, bring it on.
Yeah.
So he called me, I jump on, and I'm the first Chop champion in Mississippi. And I felt good because I felt like I owed myself that more than anything. I think I had matured because it was several years later. Yeah. And I know the mission now.
Yeah.
Keep Mississippi forward, keep my family forward, keep God forward, and I don't think about anything else.
And finishing second at the first experience, you look back on it now, and there's a little bit of a reason behind that. You know, if you win, maybe you don't feel that sense of urgency to apply for the next one. But because you were second, you go and apply and you win, and the rest is history, so to speak.
Yeah. You know,
mysterious ways, man. I've always heard God works in mysterious ways.
God definitely works in mysterious ways. And I just think about everything I've heard from childhood coming up, you know.
Yeah.
I was raised by some very, very strong people, and they always tell me, don't lose your character. don't let nobody trick you off of what the mission is, you know? And I think about that, and I beat myself up about it too. And that was reason why I wanted to get back on Chopped or on TV so bad, because I just wanted the world to see who I was becoming too, and how I was raised.
And you mentioned that one, you kind of reached out, you sought out the opportunity to be on that next show. Since then, your phone's ringing.
Yeah, since then, my phone is ringing. Everything from Confirmation to Food Network Canada. I went to Canada, which was Franklin, Ontario, and I won that competition, which was so much fun. And then I did so many shows. I was honestly going to hang it up other than go out and do some judging. And until Top Chef called me. And when Top Chef called me, I haven't watched like one episode of Top Chef. I mean, little pieces, but I never sat there and watched. No, I didn't. So they was interested, and they said, "Hey, we want to interview you and see if you're a good fit for this season." And I did it, and I just kept binge watching Top Chefs, before my interview. And I felt like I had it at that point. And seeing Tom Colicchio and all on the Zoom, and I guess I impressed them that, I was going to be one of the ones. And the thing about Top Chef that I find so interesting is it's a marathon, for one. It's a marathon. But the other thing I like is how they mixed it up. They had a lot of the chefs there was cooking for some of the #1 restaurants in the world. They have staged or worked in Michelin star kitchens.
Okay.
I haven't. I've worked in a Michelin star farm before. No, just a joke. But
yeah.
I've never reached that, but I have a lot of discipline. I've worked on, my methods and that kind of stuff. I read very well, so I'm always trying to study on the next best thing and still keep it me. So to go up against a lot of those amazing chefs and be there pretty close to the end, and I was there for 4 months, was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I could have been home a week, but I wasn't. So I just love the fire that Mississippi bring. And so this is like really important to be on this Mississippi Outdoors show, because I get both worlds.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned deer. So venison. Let's say right now you go and you're on your next show, Food Network, wherever, and they say, okay, the challenge is venison. When you're going to try to win with venison, what would you do? Just off the top of your head, like what route might you go?
One dish or two?
Let's just say two.
Okay, say two. So if I was doing two, I would probably do the first one. I would probably do like a tartare.
Okay.
Because I do really love venison raw. So I will probably do that, a tartare. I will have the acidity kind of high on the meat. I will probably do a duck egg with this one, just only the yolk. If I can, I'm going to try to smoke the yolk. And when I plate it up, I will present the yolk right in the center of the tartare. One other thing I love with it is the balance of forcing in other Southern ingredients to it. So I will make some sort of a mousse that's made with field peas to go with it.
Okay.
And if I can, I will make this quick potato dough that my grandmother taught me that's cooked in a cast iron skillet, and I will make some crispy bread just to go with it. But I will start it off just that way. And I think that that's going to be thrown in your face like really hard. You ain't going to want to stop eating it. My second course, I would probably do a venison Wellington.
Okay.
I would do it just like a beef Wellington. I will wrap it in puff pastry. I will lattice the pastry over the side. I will really respect the venison, and I will cook it about a mid-rare on that venison. I will make something with some parts of bone. So I would have a really luscious, delicious sauce that goes with it that may have hints of blackberries. And if I can have my my hands on any dewberries. Dewberries actually will be a really good sauce. It would hold on to it, especially with some of that bitter and sweetness that it covers. And I would just let that be the highlight. And I just think that right there would be a very signature Mississippi journey that you will take through food.
That's fantastic. Just it makes you hungry, obviously, just to hear it. And now I feel like, it'd be my luck that you will go to the next show and there will be venison and this will have aired and they'll already kind of know. And but you may have to adjust, but I'm sure it would be great. Real quick question. So the venison Wellington versus beef, is it cooked? The process of cooking it similar, or is it different because it's venison in terms of how long and temperature and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's definitely a little different. What I probably would do too is temper the venison beforehand, like with a really good hot sear. Okay. Still having it completely rare, but developing some flavors on the outside. That would be the only thing I would be worried about, is putting a raw piece of meat. I definitely wouldn't treat venison raw. I wouldn't even treat beef raw, but I just think that would bring a lot of the great flavors that venison has to offer. Because venison makes some really good burgers, and I'm sure you know about this, sausage and all those things there. I mean, I have a big love for venison. So that and the mushrooms, the mushroom duxelle that's in there, I will have it to be kind of mustard forward, because I think that mustard and that venison works well together. And wrap with that pastry that has all that crunching on there too. I can eat that right now. I'm a little hungry right now, so I can definitely eat it.
I think I could too. I glanced over there at Chip. He's grinning from ear to ear. I think it's making him hungry as well. You mentioned your kitchen in Midtown, Commissary Kitchen, but you have the restaurants too that are in the Mississippi Twos Museum, the Museum of History and the Civil Rights Museum. How's that been and how's that going?
It's going good. We haven't changed the menu up as much as we probably should. Because it seems like every time we do have regulars there, and we have partnerships with, I think it's like a USDA grant. So we get to see a lot of kids coming through there. They go and they see a little bit of the civil rights and the history, and then they come to us and we feed them. So that's a good highlight, because a lot of our staff and all are younger people. They're vibrant. They're fun to be around. And they all love the food. We change the desserts up all kinds of different ways. We do homemade donuts there. We had all kinds of great flavored juices there. We have ramen bowls there that's made like in a Southern style. We serving it with tons of pork belly inside of it. I know people's like, he's crazy about pork, but I'll tell you why. And we like ferment like pineapples. It goes inside of the ramen too, because we needed like a boast of sweetness in it, and we didn't want to add anything other than something that was naturally sweet. Yeah. But we have awesome sandwiches. We have this smoked brisket wrap that we do with that potato flatbread. And when we finish smoking the brisket, we chop it down. It goes inside the wrap. We have a fig, which is local figs, which you can find out there in those outdoors too. We do a fig jam that goes on there with the brisket, with goat cheese. We put a little lemon aioli and lots of candied like jalapenos, so it still have that spiciness to it. Lots of herbs, and we wrap it up. It's honestly probably one of the best sandwiches ever. And I've done that with venison too. Just smoke your venison, chop it down, roll it in some type of flatbread or something. It would change your life. It would change the game.
And one thing too that's fun talking to you is, I mean, you obviously believe so strongly too in what you do and in the way that you do it. I mean, there's a lot of people that say, hey, I made this, try it, it'll change your life. I feel like you really believe that when you're not just saying it.
Yeah, I do, because I put so much work into not just the thought about it, but the preparation of it too. And I have this transparent kind of environment. The whole team we do. We want people to come into our environment too. We want you to know how we keep ourselves clean. Like, I want you to go and look at my coolers. Like, that's the reason why we start opening up the chef's table. We want you to see in our environment. And It's not just serving you food. Like, we follow up with like some of the best hospitality you will ever see, because that's another thing that comes from my grandmother. It's all about respecting it. So I think serving food is not just figuring out what's the best sauce and the flavor profile. It's about how you receive it. What do you get after you're eating it too? Because all the food should be impacted with a story as well. So you get all that wrapped in one. So I don't want to ever sound like cocky or anything, but you know what? If I go into my doctor's office and he seems very unsure about what he's about to do, I probably will walk away.
If he's not confident, that's a really good point.
He has to be. You know?
That's a really good point. Storytelling. Okay, so you just touched on that. There's a storytelling aspect of, if we look at the name of the restaurant that's going to open, the Hen and the Egg, that's your grandmother and you, the storytelling in the food. I'm assuming that the people that raised you were good storytellers, because Mississippians, aren't we? Like, by nature, we kind of get it. We're good storytellers. I guess that's the same with hunting, the same with fishing, the same with food, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I could tell you about so many stories of just going out there in the outdoors, going to fishing or even hunting. Before you even get there to park, get on the four-wheelers or to walk in, whatever you're going to do, on that journey to get to that, you're just not talking about the best sleep you just had. Like, you know what? If it's early that morning, we're going to be talking about the food that we're going to eat once we get done hunting.
That's right.
So I've said this story before about my grandmother. Like, when I was telling you about the dewberries, when I ate my first dewberry, it was so sour. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back. So my grandmother wanted me to pick as many as I could. So I picked them. She wanted me to come in the house, put water on them, and she wanted me to keep playing with them in my hand. So any dirt or sand that may be in them, she wanted it gone. So she wanted me to pour it in a pot, and that was it. So I walked away. I'm outside running barefooted, chasing chickens, that kind of stuff. The next morning, she's got food ready every morning at 5:30 in the morning. She tell me, boy, sit down. This is just my grandmother. I sit down with all the men because they're going out puckwood. They're going out to cut puckwood. So I'm sitting there, and my grandmother puts this jar in front of me. She has these beautiful biscuits sitting there in the cast iron and everything else. She asked me to go grab a biscuit. She wanted me to pop it like a soda top. I popped it, put it on my plate. She said, open that jar up and put a spoonful of that inside of your biscuit and close it up and eat it like a burger. So I go to do that, bring it up, and I take a bite. I fell in love with that woman all over again. And that's why I am an advocate to talking about dewberries. Eat them while you're out there. Bring them back. Like, put them in vinegar. Put you a little sugar in it if you want, but utilize them. They're so good for teas, smoothies, whatever you want. But yeah, storytelling is something I think Mississippi is the best.
Yeah. With your lifestyle now, you go to Hollywood, you're at these shows all over the country, restaurants, a kitchen, involved with education of kids, opening a new restaurant. Do you still have time to enjoy the occasional hunting trip, fishing trip? You still have time to go? Or are you too busy?
Well, I'm a little down because I couldn't get with my uncle last year. Okay. So about a couple months ago, I went down in my storage room, and I never bring my hunting clothes in, to get washed or anything. Stays in this bag. I want to go out to string them up and all. And that's what I normally do every year, to see if they got any rips, anything left in the pockets, whatever it is. I got my nice little bag that they hang in. I've already got them hung up around my storage room. I'll never miss again. It's therapeutic, I think it's something that I really need, because normally I go with my uncle. We go to normally one of the same spots. We go into the woods, probably about a couple 100 yards, and we split away. He go that way, I go that way. We already know our diagrams of who is going to be where. And I sit there for hours. And it's one of those things that I cover so much ground mentally for myself. I do advocate for therapy, but I advocate for hunting and therapy. It's just a beautiful thing. I almost come out as a man that just went off on vacation, you know?
Yeah.
And if you see the right deer, then you're definitely on vacation.
Right. That's the bonus almost. Yeah.
That's the bonus.
Yeah.
You know, it's just great. And I love kids when kids first time that's involved, because I really want to take them through the process of how it was done to me. And just so they can feel it. You know, you need to have blood that's hanging on your jaw. You got to experience it all. And Mississippi just has a lot to offer, you know, and I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. Well, and I know people who listen, especially those of us from Mississippi, really appreciate you too. It's inspiring to see someone have success and continuing to have success, even in other parts of the country, who is so proud of our state, who sees it for what it is. And that is, according to what others might say or what you might hear, it's really the hidden gem, especially in terms of outdoors, the ability to do what you want to do outdoors and enjoy that, and food.
Yes.
And you got a little bit of all of it in you, don't you?
Absolutely. I got the wildlife and fisheries on here. This is the pig.
There's okay. So you said you were going to tell me later about the pig. So that's it. Nice.
You know, I remember going duck hunting.
Yeah. I got the mallard.
So, but yeah. And you start over here. I haven't finished it, but that's where you get your catfish, and I have crabs and the crane.
And the lighthouse from the coast.
And the lighthouse from the coast. So I just got to finish it up. I got to add my deer, but I have most of the things on me. So I just want to tell you that when I tell you I'm Mississippi outdoorsman, I am all the way, all the way.
You wear it.
I wear it.
Literally and figuratively.
Absolutely.
Nick, thanks so much, man. It's a pleasure.
Welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Really. That's Nick Wallace here on the Mississippi Outdoors Podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you outdoors.